Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gotham. Quite a few things went down in this episode, so let's break everything down bit by bit. Obviously, we had that boy Will show up at the end of last week's episode, and now, Jim and Harvey went to go try and rescue the other kids who are being held by people named the Soothsayers. This is that dude breathing in the gas. Interestingly enough, that dude, I've seen him in a few things, but the thing that comes to mind first is he was the hitman in season 1 of Daredevil. Early to middle parts of the season where he pops up. Nevertheless, that's just kind of where my mom went for him. But it's like the whole breathing in the gas thing kind of made me go, that's interesting. Because the only character I can think of that really does that is it's a different thing. It's like, because he's pumping venom, but it's Bane. And then that whole other group that lives in the Dark Zone. Because isn't Bane like a luchador in some continuities? Maybe I'm just full of shit on that. I know he's like a wrestler, but I feel like there's some continuities where he's specifically a luchador. But like I said, I could be crazy about that. I was wondering if that was supposed to be like something where it's like, was that potentially? I mean, that's different from Venom, but still, it just made me think like, oh, they're sucking on gas, and just that happened. Like those two, I guess it's just like these are two gangs that just happen to be preoccupied in the same space. I also love that Harvey and Jim found themselves in a little horror house. The woman calls herself Mother, and part of me, my brain goes, once again, this DC stuff that kind of popped in my head is like, that wouldn't be like the Mother May I from like that, you see in Teen Titans. She's popped up in Teen Titans Go. That wouldn't be that same character, would it? I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but that was kind of creepy, almost horror element to it. And Harvey being like, yeah, sure, let me check out the basement by myself in a creepy hotel. What could possibly go wrong? Goes there, finds teeth and fingers, and he's like, Jim, screaming for help, and he's freaking out. He's like, there's a crazy lady in a mask, and we gotta get out. That was interesting. And also what caught me by surprise was like the little boy that's there. It's like he's kind of become like her because he locks Jim and Harvey in that room for the light to knock them out. It's like, once it knocks you out, you'll get dizzy and you won't feel a thing. So it's like, ugh. So, I mean, for her, it's like, I raised that little boy. I brought him in. Everyone outside would have killed him, but I took care of him. I mean, to be fair, it's hard to, I would assume with what he did, that's as far as he goes with his participation. He hasn't gotten to the point where he chops up the bodies yet, or burns the body yet. To be fair, we don't know. He could be doing a lot of the legwork in that regard. I mean, because she is about teaching him how to survive, so she might be passing on what she's doing, what she knows. The question is, was she always like this, or was she a little warped and then became like that? Because it's so interesting, because as a character, you're just kind of throwing in there, but I guess it's kind of just feeding into, like, it's Gotham. Gotham that's cut off from the rest of the world. Gotham that's going a little bit crazy, which is kind of saying a lot considering Gotham is literally the most bazonkers, like, place in the DC universe. At least from my limited knowledge, like, I don't think any other city can compare to Gotham. Just like the amount of crazies in there. And then you might be like, oh, that seems a little mean. It's like, it's Gotham. Like, there's crazy and there's Gotham crazy. Let's not forget Gotham crazy create the Joker. So let's, so it's a whole thing, because that's always something people like, oh yeah, when it comes to mental facilities and stuff like that, people don't always like how it's being portrayed, but then it's like, yeah, but you can't say that same thing when it comes to Arkham, because Arkham is a beast all on its own. So it was just something, I'm just going on a huge tangent. So I just like, that was a character that's just kind of thrown in there, just kind of being like this almost horror element. Because that feels like that should be out of a horror movie or something like that, the whole situation. But I'm curious, like, will we ever circle back to that? It's just kind of like, because even Harvey was like, you can't say, some people don't want to be saved by you, James Gordon. The fact of the matter is, leave that lady and that kid to do their own thing. Like, the fact of the matter is, all you can do is save the people you can save. I mean, hell, even the people on the outside were like, yeah, don't even try and save those kids. Focus on what you got. The fact of the matter is, we're not going to bring any pilots or anything in there until we know the airspace is safe. And it's like, you're doing okay. So, because for Jim, it's like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, I guess there's some kind of cool thing about it where it's kind of like, oh, they value Jim, but I guess it's only because Jim has managed to keep things as under control as he has, so they need him. It's not like they really care that much about Jim, but I think he's a necessity because he's keeping not the greatest balance, but at least some shape or balance and keeping people protected in Gotham. And so maybe it makes them feel a little more justifiable and being like, okay, we're doing it slow and steady, because it's that whole situation of like going out there people will be put in jeopardy. You'll be saving a few, compromising the majority, essentially. It becomes that type of thing. It becomes a numbers game. That's what this whole situation is about. Not surprised. It was interesting that he ended up going to Barbara for help in this situation, which Barbara was not too happy, because it's like, you let Penguin live. All you did was crippled him again. You sat there and let him kill someone important to me, but, so... It's kind of interesting. Like, no one deserves death more than you. Like, it seemed like that was specifically aimed at Jim, because it's just, I guess, for her, it's just kind of like, Jim's always off playing the hero, but he's never been the hero. That's always been his struggle throughout the entire series. And I guess, Barbara, who the size of Jim Gordon, maybe like she's kind of got a different perspective. But also at the same time, it's just like, she's hurting right now and she's lashing out. The person she's severely pissed at is Penguin. More so than anything, it's like, you should have let me kill Penguin now and I had a chance. But for him, it's like, you doing what you're doing is very suicidal. So of course I wouldn't let you do it. It's also interesting, too, because she shows up later on and she's like, maybe I was being a little harsh. The fact of the matter is, he even saved her from that guy because Gordon used his last bullet on her. I was actually surprised, too, that lady from the other gang that was kind of like, oh, we're here to get James Gordon. The fact of the matter is, she was the first one he put a bullet in, and he killed her. I was like, oh, I thought they were setting you up to be like some main leader of this group. I guess you were just kind of a somebody part of this group. Maybe I don't know. I guess you weren't that big of a deal because they just removed you from the story just like that. It's like, okay, never mind it. Same thing for the other guy. But I don't think the other guy was dead. I don't think Jim killed him. I think Jim just kind of put him down in the sense of wounded him. But nevertheless, Barbara did show up and kind of mowed down quite a few people in her situation. But it was almost interesting too, because she's like, maybe oh, you used your last bullet and to save my life. I guess that's love, isn't it? Which is so interesting. It was something I was literally thinking about when I was watching the episode, and I have not talked about this in a while, though. I don't in the technically 2.5 seasons, just because it wasn't until halfway through season 2, but in the 2.5 years I've been talking about this show, I don't think I ever really talk about the fact is it's crazy to think about how and where Barbara ended up, because I think because she's been kind of this way for so long now that you almost forget where she started, where her and Jim started. But I mean, that is something that kind of comes back in my head every once in a while, but I feel like a lot of times I don't really take time to really think about it and realize just what she's went through and the progression she went through. I never thought she'd end up being the character that she ended up being. It completely took me by surprise. So what's also interesting, because I'm going to tie this all together, because there's a whole Ed situation where Ed is kind of you literally tying himself to a bed, locking himself in, thinking it's going to help him. He wakes up, there's a dude named Tank in his tub that he tortured, but the dude won't give him the information yet again, which is kind of crazy, because it's you literally just got tortured and now you're I'm not going to tell you now, even though you tortured me, so I guess I'm going to have to torture you again to get information. I think it's the same process as Batman. It's kind of bad guys still do what they do, even though they know that Batman goes and beats the crap out of people. It's that'd be kind of a deterrent to be not to do crime, but always a thought process, I guess, is always well, Batman, the guy who beats the crap out of you, but he never kills you, that's still got to be hell on your medical bills and stuff like that. Nevertheless, huge tangent I'm going into. But eventually, it's Ed wanted to talk to Vasquez, the leader of the street demons. They go there, and they're all dead, and it says Penguin was here. I was oh, it's did Penguin do that? But Ed was no, I don't think so. So immediately my brain goes, it has to be Barbara. Barbara's trying to start a war because she probably knows that she herself doesn't have the numbers to go up against him, so she's trying to do that. But then immediately, it wasn't until I sat down and started recording and thinking about it, because that could be a strong possibility, because she does want Jim's help, but I feel if she was doing that, would she need Jim's help? I guess the fact of the matter is, as long as, when you have more pieces on the board, then it makes trying to accomplish what you want easier. But the fact of the matter is, considering how Barbara's feeling right now, how angry she is and how dead set she is on killing Penguin, I don't see her going about it in a roundabout way like that. I feel she'd be a lot more direct. Now, what got me thinking, though, is all those people dead and stuff, I'm then is it Ed that's doing that? Because Tank did talk about the fact is that because he was oh, were you talking to a more confident me or a more nerdy me? Trying to see if it was Ed, whether it was him as the Riddler or was it him as Ed. But then he was oh, you were a little stiff and a little dazed. So it's okay. So that makes me wonder, has Ed created a third personality? Or are we dealing with a situation like I was bringing up last episode that technically Lee's inside of his head in some shape or form? Once again, we have not seen hide nor hair of her, nor Hugo Strange, not unless that's something else all on its own. It might tie into what my other thought process was. If it's not Ed and it's not Barbara, it's Jeremiah. He's off causing chaos because he wants to stir stuff up so he can become who he's meant to be, because it was all about Bruce being who he needs to be as well, their destiny. So that might be what this is, to spiral all this stuff up in Gotham to kind of create the Dark Knight that's needed. That's what I'm thinking, you know, causing a little fun and havoc. I mean, he is, once again, he is the smartest one. He is the very clever one. I mean, I'm sure the whole taking down that helicopter, once again, who would know about that? Because it would have to be someone who knows about, you know, Wayne Enterprises connections and what they would be able to do under those circumstances. Him having formerly worked with Wayne Enterprises, of course, he'd know that. He has connections, so he probably tapped into, like, some stuff. That's what I was saying last episode, that maybe he tapped into some things to find out what they were up to and moves they were making. That's immediately where my brain goes to on that front. But we'll see. But it kind of seems like Jeremiah might be the biggest example of that, because let's not forget, Echo busted into the GCPD last episode, and she looked at the map that Gordon had separating all the different groups. Now he's pitting the street demons against Penguin. Like I said, that seems like it could be a Barbara move, but I don't see her doing that. Because like I said, she doesn't seem like she's, you know, thinking stuff through. She just wants Penguin dead, and that's all. And like I said, Ed, I don't feel like he'd have a reason necessarily to go after Penguin right now. So there's something else definitely going on there, but I don't think he's in a situation to really be doing anything like that. To be fair, we don't know what Ed's really up to when he's blacking out. So that could be a strong possibility too. Like, if anything, my head is leaning more towards it being Jeremiah, but it could be, my second running up thought would be it potentially being Ed, but we'll see in the long run. Ed might be thinking that it's him, when in actuality it's someone else at play here. Not unless that might be part of Jeremiah's plan too, that he's messing with Ed as part of one, you know, pawns on his board and everything. So we'll see. And then on the other side of the episode, we have the whole Bruce meeting with the witch situation, and it turns out, lo and behold, it is in fact Ivy. Now that situation kind of surprised me, because it's like, obviously, you see the plants growing and stuff like that, so it's like, okay, they're doing anything. So it's like, is that her controlling him? But it's like, oh, she's been captured by those dudes. And then, like, I won't lie to you, for a second there, I was actually sympathetic, because I was like, oh man, things are actually kind of controlled. Because, like, oh, she's scared because she's like, the plants, they're acting weird, they're acting different. I'm like, oh wow, I was like, this is interesting. So the plants are even out of her own control. So I was like, huh. And then lo and behold, she kills the dudes the moment she gets the chance. Like, literally seconds after Bruce helped her release, he's like, I'll take responsibility. Bam, bam, bam. All three of them are dead. I was like, Jesus. I was like, I actually fell for it. There was some part of me that actually kind of believed her BS, because I was like, oh man, because maybe the plants are kind of beyond her control, and eventually later on she was. I guess maybe the argument could be like, she never controls the plants. She has like a psychic connection with the plants, so kind of like Aquaman is with the fish. Like, she kind of has a similar thing with the plants. So she talks to them and they talk back. But the way she was kind of like, oh, the plants, they're getting, something's different here. But it's like, it turns out, oh, the different thing is the fact that she's feeding them humans and they're growing stronger from it. And I was like, okay. So now we're seeing her itch even closer and closer every time towards being the poison ivy that we kind of know. So that was kind of interesting though, because it's not like, because I don't know typically how her powers work. Is it that she does control plants, or is it more so like that kind of symbiotic relationship, or just kind of like she talks to them and they listen to her? Or does she, like, I mean, I guess that's me being, you know, splitting hairs and being semantics about it, but it's like, it does seem like they kind of do their own thing potentially, but it seems like she's kind of maybe on a similar wavelength to them or something like that. I don't know. They kind of caught me by surprise. It was kind of interesting, because at first she wasn't all that keen about helping Selena. To be fair, I guess it kind of makes sense, because Bruce didn't tell her at first it was Selena that was hurt and needed help, because he knew that on some level, they're not on the best term, because she got rid of the Lazarus water, the last bit of it that Ivy had last season. So that was kind of interesting. Like, I like Bruce kind of standing there not being scared or whatever, and having like, she's threatening to feed him to the plants and stuff like that, but he's talking about how much of a witch she is. The fact of the matter is that there's no good left in her. And she's like, oh, you think that's going to like rile me up, boy? And so what's interesting though is it kind of went the way I thought it would, because it was the thing of like, obviously with something like this, there's always going to be a price to pay. And it's like, it will feed into the dark angels within someone. The fact of the matter is, can Selena live with that? Can you? In the moment, I was like, okay, so that's definitely going to be interesting. Because ultimately Selena takes it, and it's kind of interesting because there's that parallel of like Selena was like, the fact of the matter is like she looked after Ivy after her parents died, took her in under her wing. The fact of the matter is like when Ivy wasn't doing well, like she checked up on Ivy every once in a while, you know, cared for her. Because in the long run, Selena was the only thing she had, the closest thing she had to a friend and family back then, and still does, you know, because even as she grew up on multiple occasions, because it's like, yeah, she might be old, but she's still that little kid I knew all the time ago. So that makes me think like, because even, like I said, even as she's gotten older, like she doesn't really have anyone in her life. Like Selena's been, even though there's been some inconsistency here and there, that's still the only important person to our lives. And I think no matter what, being manipulative like she might be and stuff like that, I think there's always going to be a part of her that's going to care about Selena no matter what, especially because Selena took care of her. So it's almost like a full circle thing of like, and I guess that was kind of the point. She took care of Ivy when Ivy was at kind of like a low point and just kind of sick and in a bad way, and the same thing for Selena. So Ivy doing the same thing for Selena this time. But it seems like, hey, it's all working out, but then you see her eyes, which I'm assuming that's supposed to be like, I don't know whether that's, I would assume that was supposed to be kind of like a feline thing, the way her eyes were kind of like that, because I mean, it does kind of awaken something in her. So maybe we'll see, because I don't know what Catwoman's whole deal is. I don't know whether like she seems like she's just kind of a regular thief, but I don't know if she actually has enhanced abilities. I'm sure that probably depends on the continuity, because some stuff maybe she has enhanced capabilities, like, or maybe this whole thing that's happening, because I'm wondering, is this going to lead to her having like because she's already a very like athletic person already, and just, you know, cat-like reflexes and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, is this what's going to push her to having like supernatural cat-like reflexes, or is it just going to be something else entirely that Bruce is going to have to help her fight? I mean, could it be something that's either reversible? There's actually something I saw, I won't talk about right now, that I thought was going to be that I think is connected to Poison Ivy this season. It's like an image or something, but part of me wonders, is it not Ivy that image is connected to, or rather could it be Selena I don't know. I doubt it. It seemed like it might be more of a Poison Ivy thing, but like I said, it depends on what they do. Like I said, once again, Gotham is its own continuity. It's pulling from a lot of different things, but still kind of doing its own thing in many different regards. So I'm curious to see what they ultimately end up doing that, and ultimately where that leaves Bruce and Selena when it's all said and done. Especially, I'm curious, like, will Selena forgive Bruce after everything? It's like, hey, you saved my life, you made me better, I can walk again. Especially because it's like, Selena's always been very, like, gray area, because she's done good, she's done bad in other occasions. So I'm wondering, is this, like, I mean, I guess that's always going to be a thing, like, this might be closer, this thing that's happening to her might snuff out the good in her, you know? Maybe she'll end up becoming a lot more like her mom, which I'm sure she didn't like, but maybe she'll kind of embrace it now because of what's happening to her. Once again, we will just have to wait to see. I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this, especially, you know, also the Jim and Barbara thing, because once again, they've always had an on and off relationship with the whole like working together, sometimes being enemies under these circumstances. Because it's interesting, because let's not forget, she was not there in the fast forward, so it's like that might be in itself kind of foreshadowing that she might not be around. We'll have to wait and see because of her vendetta. But then it's like, would Gordon work with Penguin after doing that? Because like when Barbara originally died at the end of season 3, was that? Yes, he wasn't aware of that, but if he knows that Penguin's the one that put her down, like, I guess it depends on the circumstances, what that whole thing that they're fighting for at the end is. I'm just curious to see where this season is going to take us with all of that. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.